everybody. We're going to make this great project today. It's a very simple crochet around a wooden ring. And while we're working on this project, I would love it if you'd sign up for our emails. You'll find the link in the description below. You'll also find a link to all the materials in the description below. And we'd love it if you'd like and subscribe so we can keep making these great videos for you. Let's get going with this project. So it all starts with a wooden ring. And we have these available in an assortment of colors and shapes and sizes. I'm going to use the largest one, the largest ring, and I'm going to use silk thread. This particular silk thread comes carded with a needle already attached, which is kind of cool if you're stringing. The fact is, we're not going to be stringing, we're going to be crocheting. So that needle makes no difference to me. I'm just going to open it up here, take all this thread off of the card, and I'm going to use the end that does not have a needle attached to it. And this is just the right amount of thread for one of these rings. So you need two cards of this thread in order to make this project. Okay, so I'm going to assume you've never crocheted before in your life. I'm going to give you for the very beginning so you don't get lost. First thing we need to do is make a slip knot. A slip knot is a loop like that. See my loop? Make sure you can see it. And then this thread goes around behind it and you pull it through. And that's a slip knot. Now, most of you probably do that in your sleep, but not everyone does. So I want to do it again. I make a loop. I bring that thread around behind and I pull it through. And that's a slip knot. Now, when you're really comfortable with them and you do them all the time, I usually do them like this. And I use my fingers and everything to pull it through once. Ta-da! There's a slip knot. And it's called a slip knot because clearly it slips. If I pull the cords, it slides. There we go. Now I'm going to take that slip knot and I'm going to put it over my crochet needle and tighten it up. I'm going to pull both my threads, just tighten that slip knot up like that. I still want it to be able to move on my crochet needle. And by the way, this is a size 00, but whatever size will comfortably accommodate whatever thread you're using, that's the size to use. And you might have to do a little experimenting with it. This happens to be a 00. It works great. Okay, so now I've got one slip knot on my crochet needle. On this, I want my thread to come up from behind my ring, and I want my crochet needle in the front of the ring. So I'm going to pull it through the ring. So there I've got my thread in the back. I've got my crochet needle in the front. Another thing I want to do, you see this end? That's going to be a loose end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crochet right over the top of that so that it's just included in my crochet and I don't have to figure out a way to terminate the thread at the end because I'll just cover it up as I go. Now, probably the hardest thing about crocheting is keeping your tension even and usually pretty tight. And everybody has a different configuration of how they wrap their thread around their fingers and all that stuff. You will find the way that works best for you. For me, I like to control the tension with my pinky finger and my index finger up here. Ta-da! That's how I hold mine. You can hold your thread any way you like. It's a real individual thing for crocheters. Okay, so here I've got my weird little tail that I'm going to tie down. Here I've got my little slip knot right here. And I've got my thread, the working thread over here. And the first thing I want to do is actually tie this thread onto my ring. So I'm going to grab this thread here and I'm going to pull it through that little slip knot loop. And to do that, if I pull straight back like that, the hook is not going to go through easily. So as I pull back, I'm going to rotate the hook. So the hooky part goes in the bottom of that knot so it's easier to pull it through. Ta-da! So that's just to tie everything onto my thread now. And I'm going to tighten everything up. And it's a slip knot, so it does tighten. Okay, so now I've got my thread attached to my ring. Now I can start really crocheting. I'm going to go through the ring. I'm going to grab that thread in the back there. I'm going to grab it with the hook. I'm going to pull it through. Okay, now I've got 2 loops of thread on here. And I've also got my tail that's going to get buried. And I'm going to grab up here at the top that thread. So now I've got 3 lengths of thread over my crochet needle. I've got to pull this one through these 2 loops. And to do that, like before, I've rotated my needle just a little bit. I'm going to go through that loop, and I'm going to go through the second loop, and I end up with only 1 loop on my crochet hook. And that is the whole thing right there. So let me do it again. I'm going to go through the wooden hoop, grab that thread on the back, pull it through. Then I'm going to grab the thread up here on the top. I've got my 3 lengths of thread. I'm going to pull it through that loop and through that loop. Ta-da! Keep everything tight and do whatever configuration on your fingers works for you. That is how it's done. And we're going to do that over and over until we cover up this loop and cover up this little tail thread. I'm going to go through, grab, come back up here to the top, grab it again. There's my 3 lengths of thread. I'm going to go through both of them. I'm going to rotate my needle just a little bit so I can pull through that loop and through that loop. Ta-da! Going to do it slowly again. Down through, grab that piece of thread from the back, pull it up, grab a piece of thread from the top, and I'm going to rotate my needle so that I can pull it through both of these knots, both of these loops. Ta-da! And you keep doing that. And of course, you'll get faster at it. I'm doing it nice and slow, I hope, for you. Going through, grab the thread, come back up to the top, grab the thread, pull it through both these loops. There we go. Excuse me. There we go. Okay, going through, grab it, come back up to the top, grab it, and pull through the 2 loops. Rotating the needle, pulling through the 2 loops. Ta-da! And you're going to keep doing that. And you can see how it's already starting to develop. I like to try and make sure that these threads don't cross each other. So while I'm going, I might actually make an effort to straighten those out a little bit, make sure they don't cross each other. It just looks prettier in the end. And you can do it now. And you can see we've almost completely buried this tail, so that's almost done. And we're going to keep going around and around and around until we cover this entire ring. Okay, let's move forward because I have one here that's almost done. So here's one I was working on earlier. You can see here, there's that tail that I already buried. Here's the loop I ended with, and I can just start up again by putting that back into put my crochet hook back in there and set myself up again. Ready to go. So I go through, grab the thread, come up at the top, grab the thread, and go through the 2 loops. 1, 2. Do it again. Going through, grabbing that, coming up to the top, grabbing that, and going through the 2 loops. And now we're pretty much covered. I think that looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is, see, this was the first loop I put on. I'm going to actually go through this one now with my crochet needle and grab my thread and pull it through these 2 loops now, so it'll tie my tail onto my finishing, so that when you have this ring and it's not, you won't end up with something that's going to come sliding apart on each other. Okay, and that's how it's done. And then I just pull all this all the way through, pull that through. That makes this nice and secure. Now this little piece of tail here, this one we already buried. We buried that inside there, and we can trim that off so the fuzzy doesn't show. And we can take this piece, put it on a tapestry needle, very big tapestry needle. And we'll pull it through a few strands here to get it out of our way. Through. Just get rid of that little tail there. And you can go in as deep as you want just to get it secure. You could even use a little bit of glue if you'd like. I'm not going to. Then trim that off. Position all your rings and everything so they're nice and even the way you want them to be. You look at both sides and decide which side looks the best. I think I'll go on that side. And you're almost done. What we need to do now is just add a jump ring. This is a twisted metal jump ring. Go through a little bit there. Add your ear wire and a small jump ring. You can see I've got a small jump ring on there to make sure that it hangs the right direction. Close that up. Ta-da! You can leave it like that if you like. Or you can add one of these great cowrie shells. By the way, don't forget where the ingredients are. They're all in that description below. So you can get a link to the materials. Find a loop that's on the opposite side. Put in your jump ring. Put this in the direction you like. You might want to show the teeth. You might want to show the cutout back. I'm going to go right there. And close that jump ring. There you have it. Crocheted earrings in the color of your choice with a nice beachy shell theme on it. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's Rose. Happy beading. So if you like this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe.